Jimmy Toscano, and Josue Pavon, all at home this time. It usually gets better when we're all in the studio. Celtics win.
I just finished brunch. I'm chilling.
And for those asking, John is still with CLNS. He's waiting for a Celtics losing streak to join the show again. He has nothing to talk about it unless they're losing.
Yeah. There's nothing. I think he said that before he left too. Yeah, there's
you know they're gonna.
Here.
And plus, Jimmy, you know the Celtics fans are going to blame him as soon as they pick up an L. So
absolutely, because the minute he pops back on the scene and they lose, it's like, see, it's your damn fault.
And he'll be grinning from ear to ear when they do.
He'll be like,
yeah, exactly. He'll be like, this is your team? This is your team? Really?
Yeah.
He's waiting. He's waiting for something to harp on. I actually thought I was going to be coming out of this one with some gripes, but they figured it out in that fourth quarter, 35-22. They win 113-104. Really was a double-digit game in the end there. And I just thought the execution was methodical down the stretch, going after Cade Cunningham after the fifth foul, having everybody in the right places, getting downhill, passing the ball out, and we got a Peyton Pritchard game to talk about.
Here comes 45 minutes on Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah,
why don't we start there? So Peyton Pritchard.
Why don't we not?
We're not going to start there.
Why not? Him and Grant, I thought, were the forces off the bench to change this game, and Pritchard actually ends up closing it. 8 of 12, 35 from deep, 6 assists, 19 points. He did it all, and he would have had 21 if it wasn't for the blown layup there.
He did it all.
He ended up kicking out to Tatum for the three anyway.
He's running for that layup.
Listen. None of you guys sound excited about this. I'm thrilled.
Here's the thing about Peyton.
Let's go, Sherrod.
The thing about Peyton that I liked was. And again, we know going to pretty much every game, he's going to get 10 to 15 minutes. And I've said this repeatedly. You have to make those minutes expand by playing well. To me, it's like going to a casino with like $10. If you leave with $10 and break even, what good is that? You want to make that 20 to 50.
You shouldn't be in that establishment. You shouldn't be in that establishment.
That's what Peyton did. Peyton made the most of the minutes he knew he had in the bank to get more minutes. That's how this stuff works. I don't understand why people feel Peyton should get like 20, 25 minutes a game. Hell no. Get 10, 15, play your ass off.
16 points in 20 minutes.
Win. Exactly. And get more minutes. That's how this is supposed to work. You shouldn't be given minutes. You earn them by your play. And Peyton, without question, earned his minutes tonight.
And that's why I think Ime Udoka kind of kept the leash on Pritchard, because he wasn't being productive when he got those 10 minutes here and there, or when the Celtics were really thin and they needed him to come in, first or second off the bench. He didn't make the most of those minutes. So I think when you are able to sort of humble yourself and you're at the end of the bench and you're only playing like the end of the fourth quarters in garbage time, I think all that's relevant, and it's sort of it led to this moment, to this game for Pritchard. And man, you gotta get the young kid you gotta give the young guy credit, because man, even after that blown layup, he still kept his composure, man, which would have been really hard for some other younger players who they're put in that big spot, blow a big layup in a big moment of the game, and still have enough guts to keep it moving.
But he was that wide open.
He made up for it too by making that reverse layup that sort of closed the door for good. He was wide open, Bobby. Yeah, that was bad.
I mean, listen, we've been talking about if Pritchard has a role in this team for a while now. I mean, all season, really. And we didn't think that we would see much of him with Schroeder on the team, and we didn't. And then when they traded Schroeder, they traded Richardson. There's opportunities for these young guys. Grant's taken his opportunity and run with it. Neesmith has had a little opportunity, not much since his trade. And now Pritchard gets his big chance today and made the most of it, and proving to, his teammates, proving to Ime that he can be trusted out there. We know he can shoot. I mean, that's not a surprise to see him, hit threes. He's one of their, weirdly enough, one of their better shooters. It's just a matter of him getting the opportunities to get those shots in. And what else is he going to offer, out there besides the 3-point shots? Because a lot of times you'd rather have Tatum or Brown taking those shots anyway. So he has to give you more than just that. So tonight he did a little bit of everything, facilitating, obviously the scoring, and he just earned his time out there late in the game.
That's what I said.
He had to present himself as an option, someone that the defense actually had to pay some semblance of attention to. And that's, to me, that's the thing that he has to be more comfortable with being. You don't have to go out there and be, pro where you're dropping 92. You don't have to be that good.
He was trying to do that. That was a problem.
Yeah, but you at least have to do enough to where teams have to respect your jump shot. I mean, think about how teams used to guard Grant Williams a year ago, and think about how they guard him now. They didn't just all of a sudden decide, well, now we're going to defend Grant. No, Grant had to earn their respect, and Peyton has to do the same. And this was, I think, a good step in that direction. But obviously with him, just like all these young guys, it's about consistency. You don't have to go out and score 19 points every game, but if you get open shots, you need to make more of them than not. And that's what he was able to do tonight, and that's what he has to, or today rather, and that's what he has to do going forward for this team.
Yeah, I just want to get one more thing into also real quick, Bobby. This is also sort of like that. This is that moment for Pritchard when on nights where Derek White just doesn't have it, right? And this was one of those days, I should say, right? This is one of those games, and the Celtics going to need those. They're going to need that kind of production somewhere, right? Those kind of points, 19 points, 17 points, wherever. You need to get that from somewhere. And the Celtics, we've been talking about this all season. They're really thin. So for someone like Pritchard to come in and do what he did, if he can find consistency on that level, man, that would be a big asset for the Celtics moving forward this season.
Yeah, that'd be an aggressiveness to his game too, as I talked about. Making the most of those minutes. That means stepping right into those shots, getting downhill, which he finally did here. I think with a lot of guys on this team, there's a sense that you have to just fire away when you catch and shoot in those spots. But you can do secondary dribble drives. You can get downhill, find some other guys, make extra passes, which is what he did after that wide open look he got that he missed from 3 in the left corner there, and then ultimately got a few more shots to go after that. He's got to be able to do more with less, as Sherrod talked about, because he had a lot of room to operate last year when Kimba was out and Smart was dealing with some injuries. He got a ton of minutes. He had a huge role, and it doesn't look like that's going to be how it is for him here ever again, especially when, as Josue mentioned, you have the addition of White there. So we're, let's say 5-6 games into this White experience at this point. I didn't love what he brought today, and he was super quiet. I think Smart foul trouble was a big reason Pritchard played more, but also White's ineffectiveness. And I don't know what to do with it. This is obviously something people in San Antonio talked about, is that he's a little inconsistent. And in a game like this, besides that early three-pointer, it felt like he didn't really give the Celtics anything.
This was a bad game for him. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But when I look at his body of work since he's been a Boston Celtic, I like what I'm seeing. Because you get the sense that because of the role that they have him in, that there may be nights like this, but he's going to do more times than not. He's going to do what you need him to do in order to be successful. And to be candid, I mean, he wasn't the only one that was kind of sucking up the joint tonight. I mean, when you look at, I didn't think Jaylen Brown had a very good game.
Tatum was ice cold in the second half. Yeah,
I didn't think really most of their Marcus Smart had a rough game shooting the ball. I mean, you start going down there. Well, you can blame it on being new, but guess what? Detroit had to play the same damn time. It wasn't as if Detroit playing at 7:30.
They beat him. Hey, Celtics beat him.
They beat him, but my point
got
is
scary there.
There were so many guys on the Celtics roster that didn't have it tonight that it's hard for me to be too hard on Derek White, especially considering, again, this was probably this was the worst game he's had as a Celtic, and I'm okay with that because if you're one of your core guys, Mr. Energy, off the bench, has a bad game and you're still able to win, that's great. And his struggles, I mean, if we're being honest and real, opened the door for Peyton Pritchard to have a game like he did. Because they don't win this game without Peyton Pritchard. In fact, they probably lose by double digits if it wasn't for Peyton. Because not only because of what he did scoring the ball, but also what he forced. He took a lot of the focus and attention off the fact that no one else was making shots. And he was. So, I hear what you're saying, Bobby, because obviously Derek White's a guy that you absolutely are going to need if you're going to have any type of postseason.
Yeah, you just expect more out of him. 1 of 3 in 20 minutes, 3 turnovers. You gave up 2 firsts and a couple of rotation guys for him.
He played a crappy game. But I'm not going to act like this guy is Jamal Crawford 2.0, that every game he's going to give you 20 points. This isn't sweet Lou Williams. This is not lemon pepper wings Lou Williams. This is Derek White. He's a good player. He's going to have a lot of good games, but he's going to have a couple of stinkers. And this was no question. He kind of sucked tonight.
Yeah, we're going to hold him to a high standard.
Yeah, but I know, Bobby.
Lou Williams standard? No, I'm not. You can. I will.
Would you say this game is an outlier though compared to what you've seen so far? Because I would. I mean, obviously,
it's the only time.
This one was the worst of them, but exactly. 4-9 in Brooklyn, 3 of 10 the game before that against Detroit. maybe it's just this matchup. Another bad one against Detroit last week too. So physicality of it. Maybe.
I think that he's still getting comfortable with his new teammates, his role on the team.
For sure.
He's coming off the bench. I mean, he's being asked probably to play a little bit different style than he's used to playing, and it's just going to be a little bit of growing pains. But I don't think that like Ime or anyone in the team is less confident in him today than they were yesterday, just because he kind of no-showed today. I mean, you can like Sherrod said, both teams played the noon game today. I don't know how that screwed with them or whatnot, but both teams were a little sluggish out there. I mean, the game was a grind. That game was.
I think it was less the noon start and more just how physical Detroit was. And there were moments in this game where I got super concerned with the way the Celtics were responding to it, whether it was complaining the officials or just getting smashed to the ground like Grant did on one play by Stewart there, and Smart getting into a little scuffle with him.
And Smart.
I
love that.
Getting into his head.
Your boy Beef Stew was on one today.
Beef Stew.
Oh, yeah. He was
laying
a body into them.
Beef Stew versus Smart would have been – that's like dinosaur versus like Godzilla. You know what I mean? That's a big match. That'd be a big fight.
How did you feel, Jimmy, about how they responded to physicality?
Yeah, exactly. That's a title fight. UFC.
I'm pulling on cash for that.
Yeah. How do you feel, Jimmy?
What's that pay-per-view thing? Was the one that they got the retired boxers on? They should have.
Oh yeah.
In the ring.
That's this team. And no, it's an outlier now because they pretty much say we're gonna foul as often as we can here, and it hurt them in the end. Cade got into the trouble, and other guys did too. Technicals, situations like that. Diallo got thrown out on ridiculous. That was called by the officials. Who knows how that's won the game too? Because he was rolling early, and then he just makes that little incidental contact with the ref. Maybe leans into him too much there, but the refs definitely. I know neither side loved the officiating here, but they ended up laying into it on Detroit a little bit for the physicality that they try to play with. And that bailed out the Celtics a little bit because I didn't think they were responding well to the way the Pistons were playing them early. We saw it last week, obviously. It led to an upset win.
Yeah, and Bobby, you touched on it a minute ago, and I think there's a lot of truth to this, and that is Detroit played a style that clearly gave the Celtics some problems, that physicality. And if you are a team that knows you're probably going to see the Celtics down the road, you're going to take a mental note of that, and you're probably going to look at ways that you can be even more physical than you normally are.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because your thinking is that that's a way that you can, frankly, take them out of their game, get them off rhythm. And again, the little kerfuffle between Marcus Smart and Isaiah Stewart.
Beef Stew.
That was an example.
Stew.
Of what can happen when the level of physicality gets under your skin.
They're playing this game again in like 2 weeks too. This is awesome. I love this matchup.
Can't wait. To Detroit's credit, what they're doing is they're playing the style that gives them a chance to compete and win games. They're not going to beat you with shot making. They're not going to beat you with great ball movement and dominant play around the basket. They're going to beat you by doing just that, beating you. They're physical. They're strong. They're the type of team that you don't want to play because you are literally in for a fight that game. And again, I understand why they do it. And when I was in Detroit, Rick Carlisle, who's now in Indiana, his first team that he had in Detroit, they weren't very good, but they made every game a slugfest. They won games where the winning team would score like 85, 87, 88 points. And they did that simply because that's the only way they could compete. And I think Detroit, the lights are going on for them that we're not going to beat this Celtics team by just running our normal stuff. We've got to literally beat them up. And if you're Boston and if you're other teams, you've got to stick with what you know works. You are a shot-making, defensive-minded, solid rebounding team that relies on ball movement, relies on guys getting to spots, making the most of those open to lightly contested shots, and getting a little bit of juice off your bench. Tonight, that little juice is Payton Pritchard.
Yeah. Hey, do you guys agree? I tweeted this. I think the Pistons are much better than their record shows.
Oh,
that's because they're – so I don't know if people
that's why Mannix was trying to make the point he was trying to make, but Scout.
They're a young team, not necessarily a bad team. So they're improving throughout the season, making them better now.
And they've been hurt
than they were like when they started the year and they were just losing games a lot. Like they have a lot of inexperience, but I mean, man, some of those young guys are talented as hell. Cunningham is, in the running for rookie of the year, and
former coach of the year too, and Dwayne Casey.
Right
before he got fired. Yep, I remember.
So I mean, I'm not trying to make excuses for the Celtics, but I mean, they're playing a tougher team than what the record shows for sure.
Well, this is a team that just knocked off Cleveland.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they're feeling themselves, right?
Right.
That's a huge win. And someone like Cunningham too looked comfortable out there, especially in the first half. They really set the tone, I thought.
So was he the best player out there today? Because Cade Cunningham, because he goes out there, he scores like 6 straight points to start the fourth, gets a couple of assists to Bagley. He had that full court
Bobby,
pass.
if we were talking about the best player in a half court game, maybe, just maybe. But Cade is a horrible defender, and I love watching him play. But I mean, he's brutal. He's brutal.
Right now. Yeah, it's definitely an area where he needs to improve. He had the foul trouble.
I think he will get better, but let's not pretend as if his defensive struggles were because of foul trouble. He was getting smoked when he had 1 and 2 fouls. I watched him play enough to where it's obvious as anything that defense is not his forte now. Now, can he get better? Yes. Will he get better? I believe he will. But right now, I mean, he just looks like a guy that when you step on the floor, you know there's going to be a 2 to 3 minute stretch where you are going to go exclusively at him. And they did that.
That's how they won the game.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And then they tried to switch him off to guard Peyton, and all Peyton did was gave him a pump fake. He jumps about a good 40 inches in the air. Peyton puts it on the floor, finds Tatum for a wide open dunk. He has to get better. That's to me, if you are the Pistons, and we're spending way too much time talking about the Pistons, by the way.
It's a team. It's your own team, bro. We got to give him some love.
Hey, this is like the story of the second half. They're playing them 4 times in a month here. It's almost like a playoff series within the season.
But it's so.
Yeah, well, the back and forth, it sort of felt like it, but no, I mean, to Sherrod's point, I felt like the Celtics did a good job of going at him in that second half. They knew exactly where the weak spot was. And give credit to Al Horford because he played a hell of a game as well. I mean, on both sides.
He kind of had a low-key good one, Josue. You're right.
Yeah, on the switches, like
he stepped up
he
big.
Held his own, he made Ime throw out that closing lineup because you had to stick with Al. White wasn't giving you much. He was doing a lot of that dirty work on the defensive end, switching up with the guards and such. I thought it was a great game for Horford. But yeah, I mean, shout out to the Celtics because they knew exactly who to attack, and the Pistons sort of fell for it, right? I mean, I
hate the one thing I did hate was that Al played 37 minutes because you literally know that you're not getting squat from him the next game.
And tomorrow. Tomorrow's a Tice game.
Oh, come on, man! You know
Tice game. Tice night.
You know that All-Star break did him some good though. Al looks more. He looks bouncier ever since he got back from the All-Star break, in my opinion. So
I've read this a lot in the comments lately.
He almost played 40 today, though. That's true. He almost played 40.
I don't care about the fact that Tice isn't playing. I don't care about the fact they have a tight rotation because it's leading to success right here. And I think everyone's freaking out that there's going to be an injury or something because of it. Listen, you're blowing out a lot of teams, so you're getting rest in the fourth quarter. You'll have some off days here or there. You got a back-to-back right now, but you don't want to just reel back on a guy's minutes for the hell of it or go one deeper into the rotation just to mix things up because this is working for them right now. And they're on this string of 20-plus games where it's working so well. Why would you change it?
It took them a long time to get here too, right, Bob?
Yeah.
I mean,
this is your playoff rotation, right? You're gonna play like this for 2 months and about a month from now. A month and a half, whatever it is. So just start doing it now. These guys can handle it, especially the younger guys. You might be right, though, Sherrod. Horford, that's a little high.
And I think about, having Tice back is their next game is exactly why you want to have a Daniel Tice around.
Yeah.
Al played 37 minutes. I'm convinced that if they didn't have Daniel Tice around, they would have been reluctant to play Al as much as they did today because that you would, in theory, you'd need him for your next game. But when you have Daniel Tice, he really is an insurance policy for if they have to extend one of their bigs more than they would want to, or if one of their bigs gets hurt. A guy that understands what you're trying to run. He understands the personnel, and he's not going to trip if he has to sit 2 or 3 games on the bench. He's not going to get up in Ime's face and say, Ime, why are you not playing me? Why are you not playing me? That's not who he is. Remember, he was in Houston playing, watching the game with the kiddies, catching L after L after L. So Daniel's good.
There's nothing that can feel worse than that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really happy to be back. Yeah,
he's happy as hell to be back.
He's a better version of Ennis, but he's going to play the same role that Ennis did, and that was most nights sitting out and watching because Listen, he's a fine defender. He can switch. He can do some of the things they want to do out there, but he's also going to foul a ton, and he's not as physical and as imposing of a presence around the rim as Al and Rob are. And right now, they're essentially splitting those center minutes. You probably lean in one direction or the other. Yeah, he's a great backup to have in that spot. And, he's salary in the offseason that you can use in a potential deal if you want to go in that direction. And it got, as most fans wanted, Schroeder's behind out of here down to Houston, and they're enjoying him a lot. But that has been a different best attraction so far.
I haven't heard anything about Schroeder. I've heard about.
He's playing okay. They're enjoying him down
there. We've heard from
Tice, obviously. He's playing from better than our friends in San Antonio are. That's for sure.
Yeah, he had a 7 assists.
Damn.
I feel bad for Josh Richardson, man, because all he did was just play literally some of the best basketball of his career, and you got to deal with Pops now.
Right.
He's not playing, which is weird.
It is weird that he's not playing. I mean, I guess
is he too good?
Are they gonna try to flip him? I guess.
Yeah, maybe? I think that they're waving the white flag. I think that's what they're doing down there.
Yeah, so they might as well.
He might be a.
He'll be on a good team next year.
Yeah,
I hope so.
You think so? I think he might stay there. No, he got another year on that contract. I wouldn't be shocked if Pop keeps him around.
I think they'll move.
They want to play young guys.
You think so?
That's why he's not playing right now. And Romeo,
watch them get a first for him.
A whole different story.
Well, yeah, I figured they want to tank the rest of the season, but then come next year. But yeah, you might be right.
They want to play young guys not named Romeo.
They're years away.
Wow.
Put it that way.
Then what's the point of having him? Play Romeo.
Point of having him was literally to match contracts. It's pretty evident.
Yeah, it was.
Let's put Bobby on Romeo watch. Actually, put John on Romeo.
John's always on Romeo.
John might
watch,
as well.
Romeo's going to be playing in Serbia in like 5 years. John's going to be like, Romeo dropped 20 tonight. I know he can still play.
John refreshes his game log every day.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Killing my guy. I still love Romeo. I got love for Romeo.
Hey,
what?
Good luck to him. I'm hoping that he plays. Never mind plays well. Just play. Get out there.
Yeah.
What else do we want to hit on from this game here? I guess Tatum's an interesting one. Looking at
you guys
splits.
said you didn't think Tatum or Brown played well today. That was a little surprising. I thought that Tatum played all right. I mean, Brown couldn't hit.
I love Tatum's game today, especially in the first half when the well balanced
started 5 of 10.
Yeah,
he was getting to the rim easy. He was getting to the free throw line more often. What did he put up? 6 of 8 today. I want to see, especially against teams like Detroit, man. He should be going to the free throw line at least 10 times. Like, give me like 8 of 10 or 9 of 12, something like that. Like let's see him try to ramp that up between now and the postseason, because I think that's what makes a 30-point night for Tatum a breeze. He gets there so easily, and you know what he's capable of in the fourth quarter if he gets hot. So, but yeah, I mean, Jalen was pretty ice cold, but he hit some big ones down the stretch. But yeah, I thought they were all right.
Yeah, he got to the hoop there late in the fourth, probably got fouled. But, I mean, I thought that they did just enough. I mean, you look at the box score, that might tell a different story. It probably looks like they, points-wise anyways, played better than what you guys are saying. But they did – this was a game where everybody just kind of – it was all hands on deck. Like, they just kind of had to, like, trudge through this game, and they pulled out the W. So, I think a couple months ago, they don't pull out the W. So, in that sense, they got the job done. But was it pretty? No. I mean, sometimes they make it – Jalen and Jason, they make it a lot harder than it needs to be out there. I think like it doesn't. Some games it just doesn't look like it comes easy to them. You know what I mean? Like
1,000%. And you want to see him put it all together in a game, because it's nice that when he's shots off, as it was in the second half, he can close, passing the ball and making the right plays, and that's really been what swung their fortune in a lot of these close games late, is his ability to get downhill, move the ball to the perimeter, reset himself, and run some great actions in these spots. The problem is that he's just still so ice cold as a shooter right now. In the paint, I think he's been excellent. Defensively, he's blowing up plays, and he's starting to run a lot more. I think my favorite thing that he said all year is that we're embracing those go-ahead passes. Just make a go-ahead pass wherever you can. And that's been the mantra of the team to get this transition game going. And we weren't sure if he was ever going to embrace that, because he's such a slow, methodical player in the half court. Now he's embracing those breakout opportunities, which has been good for him, because as a shooter, as a step back guy, as a mid-range guy, it's still not there for him this year. I mean, where do you go after that 5 for 10 start? That would put him at 3 of 11 for the rest of the game. Started 3 of 5 from 3, so he goes 1 of 4 the rest of the way. So he was just cold to close this game, and he makes up for it in other ways, which is good. But if he's gonna have to rise to top 15, 10 player status in the playoffs this year to win some series, he's gonna have to bring that volume scoring too and do it efficiently.
But the point that you just made, though, is I think it speaks to why I'm not as worried about what he's going to bring to the table in the playoffs, because he's finally figured out ways to impact the game other than scoring the ball. His passing was very good today. I just, again, when I said he didn't play well, I specifically speaking about his shooting.
Yeah.
His shooting was not very good. I thought he missed way too many shots that he should be knocking down. His passing was really good, and his rebounding has been at a career high level all season long. But
And I'm curious, Sherrod, what leads to a season like this for him? Where, I mean, he's like a 38% 3-point shooter, and he's been low 30s all year.
Well, I think there are two things that lead to a season like this. First and foremost, it's the role that you're asking him to play. Remember, last year, even though he was counted to do more, you had Kemba Walker around. So you had another established veteran all-star, face of the franchise type of guy around. And obviously before that, he had multiple guys who were in that role as he was kind of ascending. So you have that. The other thing you got is the fact that he's being asked to do something that he's never been really asked to do before. And that is to be a playmaker, to actually put your ability to get buckets not to the side, but just put it on a shelf for now, but within arm's reach, and get other guys shots and do that. That takes time, because one of the things that I've noticed about Tatum that I think he's doing a better job with now is he's just playing. He's not thinking about what he needs to do to play. He's just actually playing. And I think early on, he was kind of in that limbo world where, should I pass? Should I shoot? I'm just going to shoot, and I'm just going to keep shooting. And now he's found a happy medium between facilitator and bucket getter. And that, to me, is why he's trending in the right direction. And that, to me, is why the Celtics are not a team you want to see in the playoffs, because their best player is actually getting better at becoming an all-around high-impact player. And his defense, I think we sometimes forget that Tatum, his first opportunities to get on the floor were in large part because of what he did at the defensive end of the floor. He wasn't getting a lot of shots. He was using that length to make sure that he had an opportunity to compete and play on the floor when you had the Kyrie Irvings and the Gordon Haywards and those guys who were established carry more of the offensive load. And that defensive basis, that defensive foundation, is we're starting to see that come to fruition a little bit more on a day in, day out basis now, because that's what they need from him. And so, again, I think all of those things are like firing the factor into why Tatum got off to a slow start, and his numbers aren't as good as we've seen in the past. But if you look at, again, during this stretch where they've been basically the best team in the NBA, he's starting to do a little bit of everything to be impactful. And that, again, I think is a major concern if you've got to see the Celtics in the playoffs when their best player is trending in that direction.
Just wait, what do you got on him?
Yeah, no, that was well said, Sherrod. I just wanted to add that I feel like a lot of the time was because he didn't know that just changing what he was doing in his approach was going to have a ripple effect. And I felt like a lot of the time, especially early in the season, he would think, okay, give me the rock and I'll just take over. I have to take over. And even when he didn't take over, even when he did take over, sometimes they would still lose. And you could see the frustration in Tatum in his post-game comments, and people asking, well, what's going on? What's wrong? And it was his approach all along, and that's something I think Ime has been trying to, transform, out of Tatum. That's going to be best for the entire team, but not only in the long run, but also going to help him, get easier buckets and get easier looks. And then I feel like the rest of the team is also following his lead, and especially someone like Jaylen Brown, who also sort of had a similar approach, I felt like. But now he's starting to pick his spots when he knows that he has to attack. And he's starting to pick his spots when he knows that it's time to lock down and defend. And I think both of those things weren't happening every single night, and now they are. So that's been huge for this team.
We kind of hit on this a tiny bit last show, but this comment makes me want to bring it up again for Sherrod if he's with us, which he is. Sherrod, compare us, meaning the Celtics, to the 2004 Pistons.
Oh man. How you gonna do that, man?
This is just. I'm for the record. This isn't my comment. Somebody's just wondering. It doesn't mean that they are comparable. You can say they aren't, but maybe there's something there.
There's some similarities there. There are. The biggest similarity I would say is that they have a very high level elite team defense. The one difference I will say is that Detroit had multiple top shelf individual defenders. Ben Wallace was a multiple Defensive Player of the Year award winner. Tayshaun Prince was one of the few guys who could actually. You're not shutting down Kobe, but he made life tougher for Kobe than most. And the rest of the guys were just really good team defenders. You've got Marcus Smart for the Celtics, but beyond that, I don't know if you have that elite all-around individual defender. The closest you got to that is Time Lord. And Al's a good defender as well. But I think the biggest difference is that
he ain't no Ben Wallace, though.
The Celtics are a better offensive team and have more offensive firepower than that Detroit team did.
Are the Celtics a physical
and they're
team?
Younger. Celtics are a lot younger.
They're starting to be, I think, right?
The Detroit team was more physical. That
might be an era thing too, though. It's harder to be physical now.
It's an era thing, but it's also a personnel thing. I mean, even a guy like when people think of them being physical, they think of guys like Ben Wallace. But in the backcourt, they had former Celtic Mike James, who was a physical, in-your-face, inline defender. They had Lindsey Hunter, who was another inline defender in the backcourt. And so they had and Corliss Williamson, Darvin Ham. They had guys who were real.
You didn't even mention Rip. Rip was all over the place too.
Well, Rip wasn't like a great defender, but he was kind of like he was a guy that could use his length to disrupt you, and he used his mouth to get in your head.
And he would tire you out. He would tire you out.
Absolutely. And Rip used to keep his nails a little bit longer than most people. So if you get sliced up at some point in the game,
I
remember hearing that. Guys used to be like their entire bodies were just bleeding after because
it was like Wolverine. It was like being guarded by Wolverine out there sometimes.
It is pretty cool that the Pistons, because they've gone down this road multiple times. It was like the Bad Boys, then that team, and now they're trying again to do that whole physicality, bang you to the ground, follow a ton,
with Stewart.
And it works there. Yeah, they have an interesting team up and coming here. And you were right to start the show, Jimmy. They stink. But they stink and they're getting much better, much faster.
Yeah.
Well, they're young. The way the league is now, you can't be anywhere close to being physical as they were back in the early 2000s. It just won't fly. I think the Celtics, for the most part, are doing a good job of maintaining some semblance of physicality. But again, I still think that there's a gear or two defensively that they need to get to from a physicality standpoint if they're going to have significant success. They do a great job of being in the right places defensively. They do a great job of switching, but you never really feel with consistency that other teams are physically feeling them. You don't see the hard fouls. You don't see the closeouts. You don't see the perimeter block shots, which I think are just – and those are such psychological blows that when you're a jump shooter and someone's blocking your shot from 20, 21 feet away, you are going to remember that the next time you look to raise up.
I love this conversation because it's going to tell us a lot about where this team's going. But first, I do want to let Jimmy tell you about Coda.io. These teams are trying to make themselves better.
Why would you cut out Sherrod
Jimmy,
for this? Right,
listen, that's Jimmy. That's the pass with 3 seconds left on the shot clock.
Shoot away, Jimmy. I'm about to take like a falling out of bounds shot right now. That's gonna screw up.
Jimmy was just back in 2004, and now Bobby's just like, "Oh, wake up, bro, wake up."
Yeah.
Bobby with the corner pass with 3 seconds on the shot clock. Jimmy, go.
Sherrod's literally
Jimmy, I'll get started for you, Jimmy. This Pistons team, they're trying to make it themselves better, but Coda, they're gonna make your team better, right?
Ooh, you know what? I'll take it one step further. It kind of feels like the Celtics might be using Coda, and I said that last time, but they're kind of on the same page right now. So that's kind of what Coda does for you. If you know, right now, the way things are in the world, a lot of people are working remotely. You know, you're going back and forth with people on your team. You might be a big company, you might be a small business. It doesn't matter. What Coda basically does is incorporates all the different apps and spreadsheets, tables, charts, all those things, groups them all together and makes them, basically anyone on your team can access them all at the same time. So you're on the same quote unquote page, even if you're not in the same
It's like the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit of cloud stuff. So what Coda does, and if you go to coda.io/garden, you can start this for free. What Coda does is essentially brings your team together when you can't be together and allows you guys to stay on the same page. It streamlines everything. It's all synced up. No more relying on copying and pasting and all that garbage that slows things up, confuses people. So with Coda, you can solve for just about anything. And right now, you can get started having your team all working together on the same page for free. So head over to coda.io/garden. That's coda.io/garden for free. Guys, I think that read was a little bit better than the first one I did.
Well done,
Yeah,
Jimmy.
down.
Go back to your regularly
better.
scheduled programming now. But yeah, honestly, I did go. Honestly, guys, just go to the website. It's pretty cool. I actually did go to it because I was like, what the hell is this thing? And it's legit. Like, and there's a lot of big companies using it. And
What the hell is this thing?
it explains exactly, like, they've got little, YouTube that kind of explains what they do. And
That's why you gotta try it for free. There's nothing to
You
lose.
can just go there, try it for free. You can design your own pretty much website by using it, and it's cool. So coda.io/garden.
Don't forget, we're
All
on
right,
Discord
Sherrod.
as well.
You knocked that
Jimmy's
jump
run
shot
the
down, Jimmy.
Discord.
I see. Okay.
All right, Sherrod.
CLNSmedia.com/Discord.
Oh
Go
yeah,
there,
don't
join
forget about our
I think-
Discord too.
I think the real question is, Sherrod, there's the 04 Pistons, there's the, I want to say 79 or 78 Sonics. Excuse me if I'm getting this wrong. The only two teams, or one of the few teams to ever win a championship without one of the top 75 players. Could the Celtics be the third team? Can the 22 Celtics be the third team to win a championship without having one of those top 75 players?
Yeah, I mean, but they're going to need some breaks along the way, obviously. But when you look at the teams that we view in this, iconic, dynasty-like, frame, like Golden State, for example, they went through an entire postseason where they did not play a single team that had their regular starting point guard for the duration of the series. So you're going to need some breaks no matter how talented you are in order to be the last team standing. And the Celtics are no different. But again, the one thing that they're doing now, I will say this, is that they have shown a willingness and ability to compete night in and night out. And even though this Detroit game was not one of their better games, you never got the sense that they weren't competing. And to me, you can't win a championship unless you have a high level of competitiveness within your DNA. And they have that. It just took them a little longer than most people thought it should before we could see that. But it's pretty clear and evident that, they show up in the building. They're not just showing up in the building. They came to show out, and they came to compete. And that's what you want. That's the kind of foundation that you have to build, and we haven't talked much about it, but when we talked earlier about Tatum and just kind of how his role has changed, you start going down this whole roster, damn near every player on this team who was back from last year has a different role. And when your
What
role
about
is
Brown?
What's
I
that?
want to talk a little bit about Brown because I still don't really know what his role is in all of this. And I like some of the things he does, especially early in this game when the lid's sealed on that rim. He goes out there and kicks it off. And the physicality factor, I feel like he's the guy, especially offensively, who's the most physical player on this team. But when it comes to half-court situations in games that are going to be played at a slower pace in the postseason, that's still the box that this team has to check off. And he especially, I think, not having the ball in his hands a ton, turning the ball over in spots when he has to make the quicker decisions. Thought he was great in Brooklyn. I think he's a guy who consistently ramps the pace up on this group, but it's not always consistent from him.
But that's the thing right there, Bobby. He consistently ramps up the pace. He's your guy that can get you buckets in transition. He's the physical guy who can get you buckets in transition. And we were talking earlier about how this team defensively needs to be a little more physical. Offensively, they need to be a little bit more physical. That's why a guy like Derek White, for example, is a godsend for them because he's someone who is going to attack the rim. He's someone who can finish at the rim. And Jalen is your best option in that regard. And from you look at how his game has evolved. He has to be your first or second best scorer night in, night out. He has to be that guy. And whether that comes in transition, whether it comes in corner threes, whether it comes in wing threes, he has to put his imprint on the game offensively. And that's the role he has to play. His defense, I think, has been okay. I don't think it's been great. But if he's exceptional in those other areas, knocking down shots, getting out in transition, scoring, that is going to be the role that he has to play in order for this team to be all that it can be.
Where you at on him, Jimmy?
Jalen, I'm up and down, but recently I've been more up. I think just overall, that's probably because of the team's success, and he's been a huge part of it. I kind of agree with a lot of what Sherrod said. I would like to see a little bit more consistency, more physicality. I mean, his athleticism is off the chart. I mean, that's like the first thing that jumped out about him to everybody when he joined the team. The knock on him was his shooting. So he's gone to lengths to try to improve that. Credit to him. But I feel like that's almost come at like the expense of his athleticism a little bit. He's almost sometimes relying a little bit too much on the shot. And I'd like to see him get a little bit more physical. Now, I'm not saying this game specifically. But just overall, there's those situations where we talk about Tatum, how he needs to get to the line. I think Brown should be getting to the line just as much, just the way he's be a little bit more of a slasher in there. But
yeah,
he has
don't get me wrong.
has the gifts. He has the physical gifts to be good on both ends of the court. Very good on both ends of the court. Defense isn't effort.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Right. No, I was just gonna say, I think especially when there's a marquee matchup, I think he tends to sort of, when he's focused on the defensive side of things, he'll tend to lean on that 3-point shot. He'll look for that open look instead of being more aggressive. So I'm with you on that, Bobby. I feel like I like to see that more often. Him try to be more, not sort of force the issue, but just be more assertive. But I think this is all sort of his learning curve, right? I feel like he's really evolved throughout the past couple of months, and ever since he's come back, from what was it, COVID or the injury,
the hamstring,
the hamstring. That's right. He's been just sort of trying to mesh back in and be the best version of himself, and I think this is that transitional period where he's going to put it all together. Look, this was a quiet 27 points, today against the Pistons, but I think a lot of that had to do with those shots down the stretch. It sort of felt like he was approaching 20 and all of a sudden he was over or closer to 30, but that's because sometimes he has those really quiet offensive nights because what he's doing defensively, and he sort of sprinkles those shots here and there throughout the course of the game, whereas someone like Tatum might go off for like 12, 13 points in one quarter, and Jalen doesn't do that all the time. But
yeah, and
he's been solid though. He's been solid.
I'm nitpicking here up and down the board with this group because, like we just talked about in the last segment there, the aspirations for this group are higher now, as they should be, right? We came into the year with, I'd say, mellow expectations for them. Our expectations dropped to the floor when they started struggling. And now you have two guys like this, plus this defense, plus the ball movement that they're flashing, all the different things we talked about after that Brooklyn game. This group can go far, and they should be expected to go far, especially if they're healthy and together. And in a game like this, where some of the things Detroit did against you are things you're going to see in the playoffs, slowing the pace down, being more physical, forcing mistakes, and even some calls going against you, which obviously the Celtics had to deal with at points in this one. I didn't love where they were around the second quarter, going into halftime, and even for much of the third quarter there. But for them to answer in the fourth and blow the Pistons away and execute possession by possession down the stretch, it's another step in the right direction for this group, and just the consistency that they're playing with to win this many games over this long of a stretch now. Now we're talking 18 out of 23. The expectations got to go up for this group. So Tatum, Brown, especially as the leaders of this team, they had good games today. They're both going to have to be great to go all the way in the East. And, that's where I'm at. What would you feel is a good, successful season for this group now, Jimmy?
Okay, I just wanted to finish my thought before we transition that. I think what you're also starting to see a little bit is Tatum kind of maybe distancing himself a little bit from Brown. I just mean like in terms of talent. Like it almost feels like we always talk about Tatum and Brown. Well, maybe it's Tatum and then Brown. You know what I mean, sort of thing. So I think we're starting to see that. And I think a lot of people thought that
it should be both, though. It should be.
I don't know. I mean, I think I think it's okay if it's generally understood that Tatum is better than Brown, but that doesn't mean that Brown isn't good. But they just kind of maybe falling into this line here of talent and roles, I guess you could say. Like if you have some teams or, are successful when there's a definite, go-to guy that you kind of lean towards, and that doesn't mean that they don't turn to Brown for any reason or at any time, but there's almost like, okay, like give it to this guy and see what happens sort of thing with Tatum. Yeah. Do you guys agree with that or no? Like, is Tatum starting to sort of?
I think his role is more defined.
So.
I think
I'm with you, Jimmy.
He's going to have the ball a lot, but go ahead, Josue.
No, I agree with that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think he sort of
right.
I'm not alpha,
right.
and I think that a lot of the conversation that these two have had, I'm sure they touched upon that conversation, that topic. They're not going to go to the media and be like, "Yeah."
I don't think that's how Brown feels.
But I don't think. But no,
nor should he. But it doesn't matter how he feels. I mean, I'm just saying that's just facts.
I don't look at it as, you're a step below, or Tatum is above you, which that means this, that, and the other. I don't think it affects what Jalen should be doing at all, or his approach. I just think it's an observation from afar. And look, Jalen could, or Jalen could say, that's not true, and bounce back next season, and maybe he, the all-star snub maybe did bother him a bit, and maybe that'll motivate him. But I don't think that he has to say, oh, I'm 1A to him 1B. Like I think Tatum's ascension is beneficial for everyone. So I don't think it's necessarily getting in the way of what Jalen needs to do for this team. I guess what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't. And their roles will be different. I'm just wondering where Brown fits in consistently. You've been talking about this forever, Josue. He can't get lost in games. And he's not right now. I'm not saying that he's out of the mix or he's not getting the ball enough. He certainly took 24 shots in this one, which is quite a bit. And he's doing that game in and game out. So,
he used to not do that. He used to,
and they're passing to each other more, which has been a constant over the last 2 quarters of the season. There's a good connection between them still. I just feel like these two – remember the Philly game where Brown was getting the looks early because he had the worst assignment, and you basically were able to get that massive first quarter out of him, then use him as a diversion and get Tatum going. There should be more of these two making each other better and playing off each other. Because, yes, Jimmy, you're right. Tatum's better. He's separated himself at this point, I think, and that's why he has the ball a lot more.
Separated.
But they're both good enough to where they both need to be involved. They got to be 1A and 1B. It can't be 1 and 2 and Brown's a rung below him with the Grants and the Smarts and the Whites of the world. These two got to be 2 pillars like they talk about. That's the phrase that they use, Sherrod.
Yeah, it is. It's a very common phrase they use, and it's easy to point to them as being those guys because of what they do on a night in, night out basis and their ability. But it's another thing when you embrace that truth. I'm not sure they necessarily view one another as equal. I think there are nights where Jalen is better than Tatum. Yeah. And Tatum has to recognize on those nights when I need to get it to the guy who's playing better right now. And more nights than not, Tatum is going to be that guy. And I think Jalen is getting more comfortable with the idea that I'm still nice. I'm still going to get my points. But Tatum, he kind of has it going on right now. I mean, the other night when Tatum had one of the more quiet 30-point games I think you'll ever see in NBA history, I remember he had 18 points, and I start packing up my stuff, come look back up, and he's got 25, 27 points just like that. We saw something similar to that tonight where Tatum scored like 8 in a row, and he did it in like no time, like, a layup, a three-pointer. And
it was a minute 20. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the scary part about Jason Tatum if you're playing the Boston Celtics. Not only is he someone who has the ability to score, he has the ability to score in little to no time. And he now has a team around him who understands better than they did earlier this season how to get him the ball in those moments and when to ride the hot hand. Marcus Smart, even though he was 2 for 7 shooting, he made a couple of really smart early in the shot clock passes to Tatum, who quickly put points on the board. Little things like that don't necessarily show up in the stat sheet or the final book are why this team is so much better now. There's a higher level of trust. There's a better understanding of what each and everyone can do to win. And at the end of the day, they're competing. And that's the one thing about this team that, and again, I'm going to sound like a broken record for saying this. That's the one thing about them that gives them a chance to beat anyone and everyone that they see in the East come playoff time. They're going to compete. And I don't believe that's the case for all the teams that are going to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, these two, they're on par, as the comment says here, with some of the great duos in the league. And you can't underemphasize
Rose is MVP-ish right now, though.
He is, but Tatum at his peak, I think, can get there eventually, and that's why the Bulls are the 1 seed and the Celtics are where are they at this point, somewhere between 4 and 6. Mm-hmm. So there still are echelons in the East. I think when everybody's healthy in the East, there's still a stack of teams at the top that probably scare you if you're the Celtics running into them. I did a video on this in Brooklyn. I don't know if Brooklyn's in that camp. They're so far from being healthy. I know if they're healthy and it all comes together, they'll be a scary team. But there's 20 games left, and they're not even close, it feels like. So I got to see it with them. Philly, though. Should we talk about this real quick before we get out of here? I don't know if any of you guys caught it, but Harden and Embiid played together for the first time.
Ooh,
and
I caught that last night.
Philly tomorrow. Philly's playing at noon tomorrow. Everyone's going to get a good look. They're at MSG, so that'll be a fun one to watch.
I want to say when they were on the floor together, they posted a 144 offensive rating against the Timberwolves.
That's not surprising.
So
that
could end up being the
against
scary
Minnie.
team in the East. And you know what's even scarier? The fact that they had 25 free throws at the half.
Yeah, that's the team that you are hoping will have to go through Miami or Milwaukee or one of those other teams that gives you problems, and maybe they can give the Sixers problems. But right now, Philadelphia, it was a great opening act, opening salvo thrown out there by James Harden and Embiid. But I'm not convinced that is sustainable. I'm not convinced, and the reason I'm not convinced is because the talent I don't question. It's the commitment to doing the little things to win I do question. Joel Embiid has bought into that. I'm not sure James Harden is going to buy into that.
There were some ball stopping moments that were.
Yeah, and that to me is where it's going to get a little bit tricky for Joel because there are times where I think back to the Celtics game where they beat the snot out of Philly. And Joel didn't score his first basket until the second quarter, halfway through the second quarter. Is Harden going to be able to play well enough to where you can have a stretch like that and it not crush your team the way it did? Or will Harden just start looking to just jack up any and every shot? Or he will overfeed it to Joel? That's the other thing that we don't really talk about. Harden is a great passer, but if he knows he's on the floor no disrespect to Matisse Thybulle, but I'm not sure that James Harden is looking to get many assists to Matisse Thybulle. And how much is his focus on getting Joel the ball where Joel wanted? How much is that going to take away from the team's overall flow offensively? Those are some of the issues that they've got time to work out. And if you're Doc Rivers, it's a great problem to have.
Doc coached a hell of a game last night, too, putting that into place, staggering the lineups. And there were moments where Maxey and Harris were taking shots with 10 miles of space. And that's what scares me about that. Those two guys have such gravity. And there still are some guys that scare you away from those two there in Philly. They're going to benefit big time. I think Maxey shot 12 of 16 in that game. Yeah, so, Sherrod, you're right. I think there's questions about Harden in particular in the playoffs that loom over that team and their ability to inevitably win it all because I think they have the most talent in the NBA now. But the fact that those two can help each other out, sustain each other, let each other play less, probably take less of a physical toll on each other because these are two guys that have had to do everything in the playoffs in the past. Now they don't, and they got a lot of help alongside them. Doc, if he can hit the right buttons there, and he has struggled, over the last 10 years or so since that championship to get the most out of some really good teams. That's another question there too. But I'm super duper confident in them just because of the talent level. It is levels and levels above everybody else right now.
Well, they also have that what I think is the most important thing is you have an all-star level guard and an all-star level center. And when those two are your two best players, those positions, man, that's like the recipe for success over the years. I mean, you can just go back 10, 20 years, 30 years, like teams that have those two great players typically do pretty well. The difference, I think, Harden, and I would imagine he understands this is like really his last chance to really, really win. So I think that he's aware that, they have an opportunity here to win a title. And even last night, I mean, he took 12 shots. Like, it wasn't like he was jacking up 25 shots and taking stupid shots. I mean, he got open for, he hit his threes. Like you said,
and they
Bobby,
get so many free throws, Jimmy.
Right. Yeah. Their inside out of the game is unreal. I mean, Embiid, to me, right now, is my MVP. We'll see how that changes over the next 20 games. But, man, I mean, just the shot of life that's being injected into that team and into that city, I imagine, like with Harden joining them. I mean, like you guys said, I think they're the team to beat right now, and certainly they looked like it last night. I'm excited to see them at Madison Square Garden tomorrow. I think that will be a fun one and really get a good look at what they're capable of.
Yeah, I agree, guys. And Embiid is my MVP right now too, for sure. And I think if you're Philly, you're like, bring it on to anybody at this point. I mean,
right.
The route to the NBA Finals is really on them, right? If they can continue to, or at least build off of this momentum and have another, weapon in Harden, someone who's still itching for that championship. You got Doc Rivers to sort of tame everything. I like their chances. I just think, out of all the teams in the East, and I'm not just saying this, I think the Celtics have a shot. They could force a Game 7 in the best-of-7 series, but they are one of those teams that I still think you have to say is that's a daunting task for the Celtics, right? I mean, it's a daunting task.
I really wish we got that matchup between them a couple of weeks ago, and the Celtics destroyed them, and Harden was on the bench there.
We'll get it soon.
Yeah, I think they'll they'll see each other in the playoffs at some point. And it's possible first round just based off how these standings stack up. We're going to get out of here because the Celtics
first
they
round.
don't
That
want
won't
that,
be
though.
first round.
They don't want that first round smoke. Hopefully it's not the case. But...
So the East right now, I just want to take a quick peek because it changes every day. I think the Celtics were 6 coming into the day. Now Philly is 3.
Yeah, but they're 2 games behind Philly, right? So that's a huge
So
win
right now, if the
game and a half. I think it's like a game and a half, something like that. Yeah.
But
you
if
think
the
Philly can end up
playoffs,
as the 1 though, right?
yes, obviously. But if
Right.
the playoffs started right now, Celtics and Sixers will be facing off first round. So
3-6.
that is the kind of.
I just don't think it's going to stay that way.
No, probably not. But no matter what you do here, you're going to end up against a really good team because let's say you rise up, you can end up seeing Toronto or Brooklyn or an Atlanta team if they end up sneaking in, or if you stay where you are, it's going to be one of those Chicago, Miami, Philly teams. Even the Bucks. I'd be terrified of facing the Bucks round 1. Cleveland's probably that sweet spot. I hate to disrespect them because Goodman did it on the network a couple weeks ago, and I feel like
big time.
I think his mentions are still blowing up a month later, but Cleveland's probably the team you wouldn't be as scared of going against, even though they've been excellent. Yeah, so it's going to be a fun stretch run here. It starts tomorrow against the Pacers, another lottery level team that Celtics going to be running into here. But
look out,
Brogdon's back. Halliburton's playing really well.
My guy.
Yep.
This could be another close one, but the Celtics should take care of business there.
Second night,
and then
second game
could be an L. Could be an L, Celtics fans.
Yeah, schedule loss coming up. Schedule
I'm
loss.
not counting on it.
A couple of days.
I'm not counting on it. We'll see though. This one today was closer than I expected. We'll be back roughly 7:30ish after that game. Another early start. We'll have a lot of early starts coming up in the weeks to come. KG night is looming. 1 o'clock start against the Nets a week from today in town. So stay tuned for all of that. We'll have it all at CLNS Media.
For everybody asking, there is a rumor that John may make his long anticipated return to the show tomorrow. So I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that makes you want to tune in or not want to tune in, but either way.
Damn it, Jimmy. I don't know if that was a good thing for you to put that out there. Damn it.
Mug pop on tomorrow.
See, it's definitely an L now. That's going to be a fun show.
We'll definitely lose.
John, make sure he shows up in a couple of nights.
For all the schedule losses, John is scheduled for the shows.
One more time, go over to coda.io/garden. Try that out for free. Yep. And there's a high probability, since it's still 3:45 Eastern, Jimmy's gonna hop in the Discord and start texting.
I'll be in and out of Discord.
We're Saturday night Discord.
Might crack a beer, get weird on Discord. Who knows? But it's a fun spot. There's actually people in Discord right now.
Tonight. Let's do it.
Discord's popping as we speak, and a lot of people like to hit over there. And
I know we got a lot of people still in the chat. Yeah,
let's have some fun tonight. It's Saturday night. That's a good call. We'll hop on
CLNSmedia.com/Discord. We've got like 650 people already, or more, I think, by now. Right around that number a couple of days ago. And we did an audio-only show a couple of days ago. We're going to be scheduling a few more of those in there. And where the fans can actually join up, get up on quote unquote stage and chat about whatever is really on their mind, Celtics related, NBA. You got girl problems, whatever it is, you can get it out there in the Discord. So come hang out. It's a good time.
Celtics NBA girl problems. Wow. I see the
big three right there, dude.
Jimmy just throws that in there, all subtle.
All right. For Sherrod Blakely, Jimmy Toscano.
Celtics talk.
Josue Pavon.
Whatever you guys want to talk about.
Yeah.
Celtics winners, 113-104. We'll be back tomorrow.
Cedric Maxwell coming out this weekend. Real quick, guys. One premiere. I just want to say that. Premiering this weekend, guys. Stay tuned for that.
All right. And
Sherrod, of course, go get our friend's newsletter. Full Court Pressed Off Bulletin.
That's right.
Blakely.
Full Court Pressed Off Bulletin. Yeah. I saw your power rankings came out again.
Yeah, the Celtics cracked the top 7.
Whoa!
Oh,
yeah.
Sherrod's ranking.
They were knocking on that top 10 for a while, man. They're trying to get into that top 10. They finally cracked through, huh?
They finally broke through. But man, look, they got a ways to go. Yeah,
all right, go see who's number 1 over there. I think I'm ready to put Philly number 1 after seeing them last night. I know we haven't seen a lot, but I think I'm ready.
Don't forget about those Suns.
Jimmy, who's your? Well, Chris Paul is out. We'll see how quickly he can get back to the court because they got whooped last night, didn't they? I didn't see the end of it, but they were down by a lot.
Yeah, they got that ass spanked.
So the fun is over in
did.
Phoenix, at least for right now.
Well, he'll be back right in time for the playoffs. You know that.
Yo, what's up with that fan base? Have you guys been seeing this lately? Sorry,
No.
it popped in my head.
What is
One game, they were so excited. It was during that big winning streak. There was a post-game show, and in the back, this girl just flashes the camera for like 10 seconds.
Oh!
And the people in Phoenix didn't even realize until they finally realized they took her off. And then they had
I'm gonna have to do some film study.
After a game, there was like just chanting. They have a wild fan base, man. Like they're fans. They really want that championship, man. It's funny.
Hey,
They're thirsty, as they should be.
What a
Remember
bummer
the guy in the
that
playoffs
injury
last
was.
year?
extra thirsty apparently.
Suns in 4, like that dude. Like they're a wild bunch over there.
Suns in 4. That guy.
You had the guy counting the money. Remember that guy? That was wild.
Yeah.
Yes. Yo, there's always something with them. So
That was a really
they're
fun
hurting right
finals. I wouldn't
Party's
mind a
over.
rematch there, but
now.
we'll
Party's
see.
over. They're waiting for Chris Paul to come back. They're really worried. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Things are heating it up. We'll have it all here at CLNS Media, so stay tuned. Subscribe to the YouTube channels, all the rest, and we'll be back tomorrow. See you guys.
See ya.